All right. We are live. Hello and welcome to episode number 78 of the Gaming Perspective Podcast. The podcast that is now most likely in a senior's home by our episode count. Very likely it has become old, it has become senile, it's become rather hostile around the house. And now it's off to a better place where you can only have to visit it on holidays. But I'm glad to be here. I'm your host. Always charismatic. No one has ever used that word to describe me. Nicholas Downey. And I'm joined, as always, by the intrepid duo that is, of course, from Windows Central and Android Central. Sam Passion. God, your name's just getting too long, guys. Sam Passion for single player games. Tolbert.
You know I'm just doing this to you to mess with you, right? Because it makes it more awkward. It makes it more difficult. It makes you more likely to stutter. I got to keep upping the game. But it is good to be here. It's very good to be here, man. How you doing?
Fantastic. And also joining us, as always, from the beautiful lands of Florida and the Basement Radio Arcade podcast, Mr. Eric Jackson.
Gentlemen, how you doing this evening? Good to be here, as always. I know I missed last week. Miss you guys.
We miss you too.
Don't worry. All you missed was me and Sam getting into a fist fight over the internet.
How was that physically possible?
It's the same way Twitter fights happen. These streets are rough.
Throwing keyboard jabs.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I just unmute my mic and angrily type with my Razer keyboard. You hear the clackety clack clack clacking, and it's similar. It's intimidating. But as we talk about every week, because we do this thing called playing games, I guess. Some people do that. Some people don't. I don't know. But Eric, what have you been playing this past week?
Well, let's see. The past week, I finished up on Metroid Dread. Not this week, but last week.
Sure.
But
you get 2 weeks because you weren't here last week, so you get 2 weeks.
Okay. I finished up on Metroid Dread. Absolutely loved it. The boss fights. That's all I can say.
How about that final boss fight? That final boss fight was.
Yeah.
Have your fingers sweat? Did you have your fingers sweat a little bit?
Yeah, it did that thing where it was challenging. It gave you enough to figure it out, and as you got to the different rhythms, it was great, but it didn't overstay its welcome.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just a great return to form for Metroid. So definitely, kudos to Nintendo and Mercury Steam for putting out a pretty good game. It lived up to what I expected. And other than that, I started on Guardians of the Galaxy, and the legends are true. What you've been hearing about it. It's a really fun game. I wouldn't say perfect. Was that Nick? Are you not going to listen to the replay? Yes, Nick. I'm going in on Guardians because you do need to eventually pick this game up. And I will say this, especially if you do enjoy the vibes of Mass Effect.
Yep.
Definitely has.
But don't worry, Nick actually needs to finish Mass Effect first. So we'll come back to that later.
I need to actually start it.
I finished the first one, and that's the good one, and that's what matters.
Do I need to get Cog in here to tell you about how 2 is the best? Do I need to?
He can say it all he wants. It doesn't make it fact.
I'm going to make a call. I have his number. It's been a while. It's been a minute.
Until Nick plays the second one, then he goes, you know what?
Yep. Hold up.
Wait a minute. Okay.
But Eric, let me ask you this, because it'll be relevant in a moment when I say what I've been playing. What chapter of Guardians are you on?
I am heading into chapter 6.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Because you started it, right?
Yeah. I didn't want to take away from you, but that is one of the things I've been playing. I've been playing Guardians of the Galaxy too, and I agree with you. Strong Mass Effect vibes. Very character. Mm-hmm. I'll freely admit, I'm kind of eating crow on this one. I am.
I think a lot of people I know I am too.
I'm eating crow on it.
It definitely you had that concern from Avengers. That was 100% true. What people have been saying, and the way they showed it, it didn't look
They did
it was
not
a game
show
that
it
like,
well.
you know what? I'll keep an eye on it. It's not bowling me over, but it's Guardians. It looks interesting enough. I'll keep an eye on it. But then the word of mouth, when it finally hit in the reviews and the word of mouth, and I honestly have not seen anyone saying like, "Oh, this is a piece of garbage." The majority of people I've seen
even
playing,
people
people who ate crow.
Yep.
Yeah.
People who normally disagree with each other on everything, and I mean everything, are all saying like, "No, this is a really good game." I want to agree with you. I don't think it's perfect. I think the combat is fine. I don't think it's incredible. I think the combat is fine. Also, I don't want to spoil some of the really cool abilities they give you, but I think they needed to give them to you a little faster. I think they're very slow in giving out the abilities that make the combat a lot better. But man, what's getting me is the character writing. This is comic book Guardians of the Galaxy. They understand and love these characters the same way Insomniac understands and loves Spider-Man. I firmly believe that. They are nailing the personalities, they're nailing the writing, they're nailing the world building, and just frankly, the weird cosmic stuff the Guardians run into, and how it's not all sunshine and rainbows, but it's very strange. It's not the kind of stuff the Avengers deal with. I'm just beyond you because I literally just entered Chapter 7. Like the Chapter 7 logo came up, and then I saved and got off, so I'm like right ahead of you. I'm really enjoying it. Unless it takes a nosedive, this is going to be... It's not going to be my game of the year, but it's definitely going to be one of the games I'm talking about, recommending people to pick up. It is very, very good.
It falls under the I love when I get surprised by something category of game. You know, where something I didn't have expectations for came and just hit a home run. And I'll safely say that where I'm at in this game, I'll say it's hitting a home run in what it's meant to do. It's not meant to overstay its welcome. I haven't heard anybody say that it ends when it needs to, but I've heard that the ending is actually really good. I've heard that from people. So so I'm looking forward to that. But you're right, the character writing, the dialogue, the choices that you can make in the dialogue, they put a lot of care into that. You know, they do have like a lot of character, the Easter eggs, stuff like that. But it takes what makes Guardians good is like they just have an interesting world in general.
Yes.
And they're expanding upon that, but not making it where it felt like an MCU continuation. It feels like you're got a little bit of MCU, but you got a lot of what makes the books, like what grounds the books and makes it good. Because I think in the MCU, Drax is like a buffoon. They've made him more of a buffoonish character. And this Drax
and that's fine. This is a very different Drax. I would say Groot and Rocket are very much the same, but it's no disrespect, but it's kind of hard to mess up Groot and Rocket. I'm just saying, like they're simple. Gamora is similar to the MCU version, not exactly the same, a little more stoic, I would say. Drax is definitely the big difference. Drax here is like much more of a somber warrior who regrets what he's done in the past. Very, very much dealing with the scars of his past. And I don't want to spoil anything in the game, but it takes cues from the MCU, but it is very clearly doing its own thing at the same time. Very, very clearly.
Yeah. And what I definitely appreciate about it over something like the Avengers is the unlocks. They're not hidden behind anything. You know, it's only hidden by how much you want to explore and find things. And that's a fun part of it too, is like going off the beaten path, they clown you. They goof on you. Like,
dude, the script. The script in this game is so dense. I don't think I've ever had a game where your crewmates and your companions or whatever comment on as many things as the Guardians do. If you do anything, they are putting your clown makeup on and honking your nose. It's like, what is he doing now? It's that way,
that's
Quill.
Not the way, idiot. It's not the way, Quill. Stuff like that. So,
even the beginning, there's this great part where Rocket's like, nope, we got to go the other way. It's a dead end. And I walk down there and I hear him yelling, I told you it was a dead end, but do you listen to me? No, I got to see it for myself. It's a scenic vista. It's legitimately worth picking up the writing.
Yeah. It's legit. Yeah. It's not forcing it. It's legit funny. And I honestly want to think, you know, even with the president of Square Enix throwing Crystal Dynamics under the bus when it came to Avengers, like he didn't realize the games. I'm like, I guarantee this is probably the thing that they probably wanted that game to be. And I think Avengers would have work so much better if it was this. Then they would have had like their kind of their 1-2 punch of Avengers and then Guardians, you know? So
yeah, I mean, and that's not saying Avengers did everything wrong. I definitely think with Avengers, you need to be able to play as everybody, not just one character in Avengers. Right. Definitely, some stuff like that. But no, I agree with you. Guardians is a very pleasant surprise. Please go pick it up.
Mm-hmm. And my main critique, and you probably saw me tweet this, and so it was like, I don't know who decided to put the huddle and the elemental buttons like in the same like pattern. It's so easy to hit that when you're in the heat of combat. And you're like, no, I didn't want to do that.
No, group battle. Group battle.
Yeah. I'm like, oh. So
it kind of sucks because I actually like the huddle. The huddle is a cool thing. It's fun to do, but
it's fine.
You don't want to trigger
it accidentally. You want to call it exactly. It's like I didn't want to call it right now, you know. Which is funny that they will actually call you out when you call it. Like, hey, what are you doing? Like, you know, like we're in the zone out there. It's like I know it was an accident. Jeez. So anyway, but Nick, yes, at some point you have to play Guardians, man.
I'll buy it when it's $12. No, you know what? No, I'll get it on Game Pass.
But Nick, that's not
what you been playing, Nick. What you been playing?
Nothing,
Nick?
Because I don't play video games. I just act miserable on social media.
He just watches YouTube videos of games and then comments on them.
Gotcha.
I don't even do that. I just look at static images. No, I've still absolutely been elbows deep in Age of Empires 4 because I didn't feel like I had enough time with it because the first 20 hours wasn't enough. So I definitely needed to put in another 30. One thing I have a criticism of Xbox Game Studios as a whole right now. And I feel like I need to level it right now. Stop making your achievement list so goddamn hard. Goddamn, been playing this game for 40 hours. It's like, here, you can have 80 gamer score. I'm like, oh, thanks. I appreciate that. It's like my 5 gamer score in goddamn Flight Simulator after playing for like God knows how long. It's just insulting. It's insulting. Mm-hmm. But yeah, still Age of Empires 4, probably the best RTS I've played in a decade. Easily. The more I play it, the more I love it. The more I play around with different factions, the more I just love the variants that they have in here. I spent most of the weekend playing as the Mongols, and the best part was I was playing skirmishes with my friends, and the unique ability of the Mongols is you can pack up your entire town and all their buildings and move them. So whenever my friend would scout out my position, start getting an army ready, I'd pack up my whole village and move it. And then I'd wait for him with like a scout in a bush over in the far distance. I'd watch him march his whole army in and then just be absolutely befuddled because there was nothing there. And I just constantly did that to him. It was just so good.
What I like, and it's killing me missing Age of Empires 4, not having a GPU right now, but what I'm loving from what you and others have said is how different all the factions seem to be. Like, I love Age of Empires 2. It's one of the greatest games of all time, and it's never going to be dethroned off that list. But it is very much like you have the European factions and they all play very, very similarly. You have the Asian factions and they all play very, very similarly. And from what I'm getting from Age of Empires 4, that isn't the case. That's not how it works at all.
Something I couldn't really iterate last time we talked about this prior, now that I've got more time with the game, is the absolute best part about each faction is you'll learn stuff by accident. Like, for example, I was playing the Holy Roman Empire, and you can build wonders as you build. Each time you go to advance in age, you have to build a landmark, right? And one of the landmarks that you can build as the Holy Roman Empire is this. It's a war palace, basically. It shoots a lot of arrows. It looks really fancy. But the unique part of it is you can create 5 units at once with it. It gives you basically a barracks roster, and you go, hey, I want spearmen. You spend the 5 resources that will be required for those 5 spearmen, but you get them all at the same time. So you can spawn in military units 5 at a time. Or like with the Mongols, if you build close enough around your main stone resource, you can create 2 units basically for the price of 1 constantly, which allows you to do the Mongol raid parties because you can just cycle your warriors really, really quickly. And it's like each faction has these little caveats that can counter things. Like, for example, with the English, it's like, oh, you have the longbowmen. Well, all the Mongols are on horses. So, cavalry is archery's main weakness. So how do I deal if I'm playing against someone who's a Mongol? How am I supposed to deal with them playing the British? Well, easy. All the English longbowmen have an ability to lay spikes into the ground, and then if cavalry charges into it, they take damage per second damage. And basically, one group of bowmen can take out 2 groups of horsemen. So it balances itself out. It's so brilliant in how it's balanced that it's not like a lot of RTS games where it's like, yeah, this faction right here, if you're not playing that, you're not going to win. Every faction can do something unique, and depending on how you play will indicate how well you will do with it. And I don't know. I'm an RTS nerd. I know a lot of people don't care about RTS as much, but
I mean, you're talking to another RTS nerd. Like I said, it's killing me missing out right now. I'm looking forward to joining you. Everything you and others are saying sounds right up my alley.
Yep. And absolutely, if you have a PC that can play this and everything else, even if you don't like playing online, I don't like playing RTSs online unless it's against some friends or whatever, or, slapping ridiculously hard AIs versus my whole group of friends to watch us get wiped in a 6v1 still, because the hardest AI in Age of Empires 4 is basically like fighting. I don't even understand how it thinks. It just slaughters everything. But the campaigns are so good because they're so historically backdropped. It's like, here's the Siege of Rochester. Go do that. And you're like, oh, wow, okay. Oh, it's historically detailed. Ooh, the map's accurate too. If you love history, go play the campaigns. They're brilliant. And hopefully it'll come to console eventually. I'm looking at you, Xbox. Come on. Do the thing.
Typically come to console at some point. They're not really known for that, right?
No, Age of Empires has never been on console, I don't think.
Yeah, Age of Empires has never been on console. The developer's official statement is that they are looking into it, but that they wanted to get it right on PC first. I can't even talk. Without starting a whole conversation, I personally think is probably the right call given the history of the franchise, but I'm glad they're looking into it, and I look forward to see what they figure out.
Right.
Yep.
Gotcha.
But yeah, that's basically all I've been playing. Actually, I haven't been playing anything on my actual console. I did turn on my PlayStation 5 long enough for it to tell me that I need to update my controller, but that was about it.
Did you update the controller?
No.
You couldn't find the USB-C cable?
No, it's not even that. It's just it's too complicated. There's a screw, and I don't know. It's just too hard,
God! I'm not doing this.
Do you know how hard it is to plug USB cable into a device? It's 2021. We need to think for the average dumb consumer.
You don't have your certification hanging up on the wall like next to your PS5.
Dude, I'm lucky I have a high school diploma, nonetheless a certification to plug a USB device in, okay? Like, let's not talk too big here.
I'm not going to go off on them because I know we have some news and stuff we want to get to, but I did play 2 other games very quickly that I just very quickly want to say. Put a lot of hours into Forza Horizon 5. It's great. Please play it. It's fantastic. Playground Games does it again. I'm liking it more than 4. And I already liked 4, but Mexico is a better setting. So that's 1. Call of Duty Vanguard. The title of my review was it's a lackluster blockbuster. Can't recommend it. Anyways, so I'm done.
I read your review and it saved me $70. So thank you, sir. Because I was like, maybe it's a Cold War situation. Maybe the campaign's good and everything else sucks. And then you were like, I read your review and I was like, I'll wait for a sale.
Good call. Good call.
Save money now. All right. So right into the news. Number 1. Everybody obviously hit the panic button and abandoned ship last month when Arcane Leon studio head stepped down and said they was taking time for family and going in a new direction. And of course, everyone was like, "Oh no, it's the end of Arcane Leon. They lost a singular person." But now it was revealed in a report.
What was that accent, Nick? What was that?
I don't know. I don't like it. Whatever it was,
it was like
whatever it was.
A little bit of Cartman, a little bit of Canadian, a little bit of French. It was like
it was just like, hey, what's every jackass possible that I can just distill and intensify down into one voice? It's not good.
I need to figure out how to replicate it now.
Right.
But everyone can calm down. Arcane's not sinking. It turns out, I pray to God I'm not going to butcher this man's name, but Dinga Bakaba, who people will be familiar with, was the director of Deathloop, will be taking over as studio head for Arcane Leon. He has been with the company, from what I did a little bit of reading, he's been with Arcane since 2010, worked on Dishonored, was a lead on Dishonored 2, and did some work on the Outsider as well. And of course, directed Deathloop. So good choice. Makes sense. Kind of who I thought was going to take over the position, honestly.
I just want to add one tiny little addendum because I did see some people curious about this. He's technically speaking in a co-leadership role where someone else is going to help him with running the studio because he still wants to be a creative director. I did see some people wondering if this meant he was not going to be directing games anymore and he was just managing the studio, but that's not the case. It looks like he still wants to be maybe not just the only one, but at least a creative director there moving forward. So I did think that was important to quickly mention because I like Deathloop.
Yeah. And he's clearly got the pedigree. He's worked on all of Arcane Leon's best games, which is all of them. But Eric, any thoughts on this or?
No, I'm kind of in line with you. Too many people get into the sky is falling, but those guys seem to know what they're doing over there. So yeah, it wasn't a surprise, that they vetted and picked the right person from within. Obviously that's the best way to go about it. So they keep the car moving, so to speak.
Yeah. That honestly, it's someone who is in a creative role within the company taking over the leadership role, which always kind of gives you that kind of, it's not, hey, we hired this guy who used to be part of Activision to lead the studio and he has no context for what our studio does. It's like this person is well immersed in our culture and knows how we create games. So, really excited to see what they do next, honestly. Because
he was really eager to join us from Activision.
Yeah. I really got, Activision used to be my default. Oh, we're going to hire a guy from here. Maybe I'm going to change that going forward. But yeah, no, I think the most exciting part of this announcement isn't necessarily even the announcement. He's a super nice guy. He actually replies to my email. So I like him a lot. He gets a massive thumbs up from me. But I think what's so interesting is what is Arcane Leon going to do next? Mm-hmm. That is the exciting thing. I'm really excited to see what they do next. We won't see it for years now, I'm sure. But
any Deathloop DLC?
I hope so.
I mean, Dishonored and Prey both got DLC packs.
Right.
Good DLC packs too.
Yeah. I mean, Knife of Dunwall and Brigmore Witches are great. More people should have played those. And Prey Moon Crash.
Absolutely.
Prey Moon Crash.
I still have to play Moon Crash. I haven't played Moon Crash yet.
Moon Crash is good. Moon Crash is one of two games that helped turn me on to roguelikes, and the other was Hades. For context, but Prey. Well, we'll talk later. I don't want to spoil it. Prey does Moon Crash does some interesting things with roguelikes as a storytelling aspect. But anyway, so I say that to say there is precedent if they I will take any excuse to go back and play Death.
Yeah, and I can almost see.
Yeah.
Oh, you froze up there again, Miss Sam. Sorry, but I didn't mean to step on you.
No, you didn't step on me. It's fine.
I could almost see if there is a DLC for Deathloop, it kind of hitting probably at some point at this time around next year, especially because I think with that 1 year exclusivity will be up for PlayStation, right?
Yep.
It'd be like a perfect time to kind of reintroduce that to like on the Xbox side, and I could kind of see that. And that gives them time also to flesh it out and figure out what they're doing and finish it up or whatever. So
that makes sense, because for PlayStation and PC players, it's like, hey, remember this? Maybe come on back to this. And like for Xbox players, it's like, hey, we kept you waiting, hit the ground running with this extra stuff here. Like, so it's kind of a win-win.
Yeah,
that way.
Yep.
Yeah, go play Deathloop. Don't wait. It's good. One of the best games this year. Now, speaking of the games one of the games that isn't quite the best game this year, but it is getting better. So, as everyone knows, when Back 4 Blood released, there was some very heavy criticism laid at its feet due to its lack of single-player progression. Basically, you couldn't progress through the game if you played solo, which is... I don't understand. I understand why people want to play it solo. I couldn't imagine playing it solo, but the option should always be there. It should not be detrimental to play by yourself with bots. It shouldn't. But Back 4 Blood offered up a roadmap to show, what content they're going to expect. There's going to be an expansion. In December, they're going to have solo offline campaign with progression, new supply lines, seasonal events, new card types, new cards, etc., etc. They're working on new difficulty, new co-op modes, melee updates, new corruption cards, and more stuff for 2022. But very much of what their 2021 roadmap is polishing the game from the state it's in currently, adding in single-player progression, and just moving forward. Now, we've all tried to play this game together, but once again, our schedules are fantastic. But how much of you guys dived into Back 4 Blood? Is this something that you will try out solo once it has progression tied to it, or is this only a play with your friends kind of game for you guys?
Eric, you want to go first?
Considering I haven't touched it yet at all, it could go either way, but I would still like to kind of do the nature of what it's kind of meant for, which is the co-op. Because the single, if they're going to have the single player, you can kind of always, the single player, you can always kind of jump into that, but it seems like the crux and the core of it will always be about the multiplayer. So hopefully eventually, maybe this weekend at some point, we can actually finally do that. So yeah. But I'm glad it's coming.
Yeah.
What's the state of the game? Because I've heard ups and downs about it. Like some people are really into it. Some people are kind of like, it didn't really hit the mark for them.
It seems to still be doing strong numbers based on what limited data we have. Very limited, I would emphasize. We don't have NPDs or anything like that yet. And even then, that wouldn't cover just regular players. But it seems to be the status is good. Here's what we want to see XYZ in the future. And this was one of those features. As an example. So like I've heard a lot of people saying they wanted the solo offline mode. It's not for me. This is definitely a game I want to play with friends. We've been trying. Adult Life is what it is, but I've been trying to link up with y'all, as you know, to play it and stuff like that. And I still want to in the future. So I can't really see myself taking advantage of this. Just because it's a game I'd rather play with y'all. I'd rather play with friends, but I'm glad more options will be there for the people who want it. That's never a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of the thing. I think I was really surprised. Like when I started playing Back 4 Blood, when people were like, oh, there's no single player progression. I'm like, I understand 98% of people that play this are going to play this with their friends. I get that. But it's like, why would you not it didn't seem like it would be that big of a deal just to keep progression the same across single player and multiplayer. It seemed weird that it was like, if you're in single player, you don't. I'm like, is there some way they were worried people would cheese it for cards, or were they worried about I didn't understand the whole decision there. It just seemed like a really odd decision, and I don't think the developers have actually said why it wasn't a thing at launch, other than maybe resources. Maybe I don't know, but I'd love to find out, but I'm sure we'll never know. But it's good that it's coming, and it gives more people more options. And then we got to talk about this. So, bunch of dorks from Japan, from a studio called From Software, released some gameplay footage this week.
No pain.
And the collector's edition's cool. No, I'm kidding. So everyone's excited for Elden Ring. Elden Ring's a big deal. It's coming off the back of, Sekiro, which is, the game of the year winning weird thing that it was. Stupid snake, monkey fucking head thing. But Elden Ring. You guys sold? You guys in on Ubisoft checklist open world Dark Souls?
Shut up. Like,
the
seriously.
Breath of the Wild clone.
Just shut up, man. Oh, man. No, like, I'll be brief on this. I'm excited for Elden Ring. Everything I see of it looks good. I like the world. I like the characters. I like the creatures. We talked about this a little bit a couple of weeks ago, I think, Eric, when you were last on, but I'm continuing to appreciate how this one seems a little more cutscene heavy and a little more dialogue heavy. Like, they really want you to take in the story of the world. They really want you to take in the characters. So I'm liking that stuff. I love the way the combat looks. I like that they're pulling in like the parrying and the stealth mechanics from Sekiro. That seems really cool to me. Yeah, I don't have more than that to say. It all looks good. Except for the fact that I wasn't able to get the collector's edition because they were all sold out when Samuel went to go, and Samuel missed the Best Buy train. So Samuel's trying to figure out what he's doing with that.
Yeah. Eric's keeping an eye out because Eric failed you on that one.
That's all right. I mean,
I'm keeping an eye out.
You wouldn't know. You didn't know, man. It's all right.
Yeah. So you don't have one pre-ordered at all?
No, not right now. I'm keeping it. I don't have a CE pre-ordered all right now. Worst comes to worst, I'll probably just go for the Best Buy Steelbook is what I'm thinking. Like, worst case, at least get that. But I'm keeping my options open. I have a couple of months.
Okay. At this point, do you just want to get one in, like just lock one in somewhere?
Yeah, I mean, the ideal definitely would have been at Best Buy to get that extra Steelbook. But like, if I see one, like if one shows up and is available, then I'll take it for sure. Okay.
I'm saying I'll keep an eye out, and it's one of those things.
Yeah,
if I have to lock it in, even if I have to lock it in for you somewhere, I'll do that.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. I definitely appreciate that.
Sometimes, time is of the essence. By the time I send it to you, it could be like dawn.
Oh, yeah. No.
When Wario posts, it's like you got to go.
Some of these are like 10, 15 seconds, less than that.
Yeah.
Even.
Yep. So there you go, Nick. It shows you as well how popular these games are, because that's also scalpers grabbing these things to like resell them because they know people are going to go nuts and grab them.
So what you're saying is that the purchasing of the collector's edition is now the Dark Souls of purchasing video games.
Yeah, I guess we could definitely go there.
Sure.
I'm gonna have to fix my fraudery and actually play and finish Demon Souls before this game comes out, because I've not done that yet.
I got y'all. I'm waiting for you. I will help you out. I got every character build you can imagine. I got everything you need. Let's just hit the ground running.
All right.
So, Eric, Elden Ring, obviously you got a collector's edition, so you're somewhat sold on the game.
just a bit. This will actually be my first From Software collector's edition, because in the past I've kind of missed out on them. So, yep, the statue's pretty sweet. And God, man, trying to go back now and buy like any of those collector's editions, you'd be better off like doing like an actual statue.
You would at this point, like go to Dark Horse or First. What is that place?
First Four.
Yeah, like there's a lot of them. There was one I got a couple of statues from. I'm ashamed I can't even remember. Yeah, you're better off going for that. The Sekiro Collector's Edition remains the flip of all time. That one was.
Yeah, I still think someone got that wrong. they priced someone lost a job on that one. So.
I paid $109 Canadian for something that's currently valued on eBay for $900 Canadian.
Jeez.
So But yeah, I don't know. I watched all the footage. I was like, it's a From Software game. I was like, and there's less walls too because it's an open world. I don't know. It still looks like more of what they usually do, and I know that's what fans want, and that's what everybody loves about them. And people are going to enjoy that. And I'm going to keep calling every game that's minorly inconvenient to me the Dark Souls of whatever genre it is. And the only thing I ask, as someone who has no emotional investment in this game at all, can we please, for the love of God, when it releases, not talk about the fucking difficulty of the game for the entire week? Can we do that, please? Can we stop?
No, that one's already already too late. Already too late.
Yeah.
I'm so tired. Oh well. What can we do? Oh, what we could do is we could cancel a game. So this was the weirdest thing that happened. So Take-Two did their earnings call because there was a lot of earnings calls over the past week with various companies reporting their numbers and everything else for third quarter performance. So what happened was a third quarter financial report. Take-Two revealed that they had canceled a $53 million unannounced project. Now, Reset Era immediately erupted into, oh no, they canceled Bully 2. And then Jason Schreier went, nope, not that one. And people were like, well, which one was it? And then Jason Schreier put out a report about 15 minutes later. Man's got fast hands. Stating it was the canceled project was from Hangar 13. So for those that aren't familiar, Hangar 13 is the studio that handles the Mafia franchise. Mafia Iii, which was a fantastic game that more people need to go and play. Now, some people were under the impression that Hangar 13 was working on a sequel to Mafia, which would have been Mafia 4. But as per Jason Schreier's report, they were working on a new IP. It was codenamed Volt, I believe. And basically, it was supposed to be like a Saints Row superhero multiplayer thing. I don't know how accurate. Jason Schreier's reporting is always good, but always gives you that little bit of wiggle room on what the description of the game could have been, whatever the case may be. End of the day, Hangar 13 put probably about 3 years of development into this game. It's now canceled. Apparently, no one's lost their jobs, or so we've been told anyway. There's no layoffs or anything, so hopefully the studio will recover from that. But how do you guys feel about this? Any interest in this or any thoughts on this?
Sam?
I was going to say Eric. Okay, I'll go first. Real quick. It's really tough to have an opinion solely because it's a weird situation where a company says a game was canceled and then we officially don't know anything about that game. We don't have anything. It's not like this game was announced. It's not like this game, we had a teaser even or a project logo. So I don't know. It's kind of rough. What I'll say is this. I'm glad it seems like no one has been laid off from the studio because even for Take-Two, even the money they roll around in, $53 million in 3 years of time is, I don't know. That's a long time. I'm thinking about what it would be like if I worked on something for 3 years and then walked into a meeting and was told, "Hey, yeah, that's gone. That's not happening." Most, not all, of course. There's big exceptions, but most games that are canceled before the 3-year mark. It is. I feel very safe in saying it's the exception that makes it that far, not the rule. So I'm glad no one's losing their job over it, but that's about all I can really say.
Yeah, makes sense. Eric, any thoughts on this?
No, I pretty much like co-sign what Sam's saying there. It's it's not like it's definitely, as long as no one's like livelihood is being messed with, it is what it is. Like these things happen, and if any company can afford it, it's them. I don't think any company wants to lose that type of money or just throw that kind of money away. But I think they'll be okay.
5 million GTA 5 per quarter. 5 million.
I think they're okay there. But like Sam said, it's a game that honestly, it wasn't like we were overly anticipating anything of it. It's not like you knew a whole lot about it. So it's sort of like, okay,
So how can Take-Two come in and be like, we're canceling this unannounced game, but yet there's still 3 people on Reddit they're clinging to the fact that Agent has not officially been canceled yet? How? How can we let this happen?
Actually, I got to correct you. Agent has been removed from their in development project list, so it has been officially.
When did that happen, though?
A couple of months ago. I don't remember the exact day. It was a couple of months ago. It had, but it's no longer.
2021. They finally canceled a PS3 game.
Correct.
It was some intern being like, "Oh, hey, are you guys hiring for positions to work on Agent?" And somebody there's like, "Agent? Oh yeah, we should probably get that off the website, guys." But
right.
Yeah, I'm a little bit more sad about it just because I like Hangar 13. I really like the Mafia series. I like the idea that they were going to get to work on a new IP. I'm not exactly sold on what that IP was going to be necessarily, but it would have been cool to have at least seen what it could have been. I'm sure 4 or 5 years from now, someone will leak it on Reddit of here's some early screenshots or here's 5 minutes gameplay of the canceled Volt project or whatever. Always seems to happen. I remember after Ghost of Tsushima launched that canceled Sucker Punch game. They leaked screenshots and details about that project. We've heard stuff about Sony Santa Monica's canceled space sci-fi game, things like that. So hopefully Hangar 13 lands on their feet, and I'm interested to see what Take-Two's going to have them do next. I feel like maybe Mafia 4 is now on the table because it's more of a surefire hit to make up what they lost, or are they going to revert to a support studio? I don't know.
Mafia 4 definitely seems to make the most sense to me, especially because they just made such a big deal of the definitive edition for the first one, right? That was a pretty big deal. Like I didn't play it, but what I heard and saw was that it was a big overhaul. It wasn't like a small resolution bump. It was essentially a remake was my understanding. So I don't know. I mean, spitballing, but Mafia 4 would make sense to me for sure.
Yeah. Because typically it seems to be when a game gets canceled or a project gets canceled that's a new IP, they kind of fall back on what the studio was kind of known for. I'm not going to say this is what happened with Sony Santa Monica, but they went on to do a new IP. It didn't work out. They ended up doing God of War. Now, to Cory Barlog's credit, there was a lot of pitching and pushback on them doing God of War originally. So, they kind of had to fight for that. And I'm sure Hangar 13 is going to be doing their fair share of fighting with Take-Two in regards to what they're doing next. And wish them all the best. Really love what they did with Mafia 3. And to Tommy's question in the chat, I do believe Mafia 3 was commercially not the hit that they were hoping for originally, which sucks because yes, the game was a open world checklist game, but the narrative that was woven into that was incredible. But hope that whatever the Hangar 13 does comes to light next and everyone's okay at the studio. Now, speaking of weird things, Metal Gear 2 and 3 are getting delisted from digital storefronts. Now, apparently, according to Konami, they have to do this due to licensing issues with the historical footage that is used in both games. And now Sam can either just completely deflate this balloon if I'm barking up the wrong tree here, which I'm sure he will. But it feels really weird that they delisted the GTA games before they released remasters for them, and now the Metal Gear games that we've heard rumors of remasters about for a while. I'm not talking the remake rumors. The remaster rumors have been swirling around about Metal Gear Solid 3, and now it's like, oh, they're delisted.
I'll kneecap you. You're barking up the wrong tree. This is a legal thing, and even Konami ain't gonna lie about this. Like, they got to renew the licenses. It's really that simple.
No.
All right, sure. I tried.
When the Metal Gear remasters get released, I will stand on my square. But with that being said, it makes sense. I think what's becoming more apparent and why I pose to you guys, because this is new for me, maybe not so much y'all so much. I didn't realize how complicated licensing was until this generation of video games, when they started talking about backwards compatibility and remasters and everything else, and like the struggle of the licensing. Like, did you guys have a general knowledge of this? Like, am I an idiot, or is this like not common knowledge?
I do now. I used to not understand how complicated this was. I know Eric has probably known for longer than either of us how this stuff works. Just even some of the art-based stuff and the people you talk to, man. I'm sure you know how complicated these the legalese and the lawyers can be after a while.
Yeah, and it's not even like, we typically tend to think imagery of popular things or music, popular music or whatever, but it goes down into standard digital music, like that's not really even recognizable. Like there's rights on all that stuff. Like when I was in a production company, like when I first started as an intern, one of my things was to sit with a list and literally go through archives to try to figure out what we use digitally that we no longer have the right to use anymore. Because if it literally made it into a show, it can be an issue. So imagine that, on this side of it. So yeah, so Sam's right. What they're pulling it for is absolutely that, because they got to get that figured out. But that's part of why when, a lot of people just love eating the sausage, they don't really know how it's made, or what really goes into it. So when we talk game preservation and backwards compatibility, it's been amazing how much of it has actually been able to get done, some easier than others, I'm sure. But then when people say, well, how come they don't do this one? More than likely, just it could come down to one piece of licensing that's in there that they cannot get anything around. Like they don't either know who owns the rights to it. They don't really know, like, because maybe the company that actually did it is no longer even in business. So it's like a whole rabbit hole that you have to go down. Right. So it's not as easy as saying, hey, we want to do that one and fix it. There's a lot that goes into that too. So so the one that you like, if it's not there, more than likely it's a licensing issue. Like a lot of that Midway stuff, things like that. Like those things are just
Midway,
like in perpetuity.
Mech Warrior. Mech Warrior is another one. Yep.
So unless they literally strip all the music out and replace it in, now you're talking getting someone else to do it. Some of those things are that's just where they lie. You can't really do anything with it.
I mean, that's the thing, right? Is like multi-billion-dollar corporations, $1 trillion in some cases, have lawyers paid comfortably 6 figures, maybe even 7 per year, figuring this stuff out. If it's not there, there's probably a reason for it.
Yeah, because you take like a game like Crazy Taxi, like newer versions of it got like, new bans and things because they just couldn't secure the rights to, or it was going to be some ridiculous amount of money, stuff like that. So it's a tricky thing, man. And it's not even just music. It's like, like likeness rights. Like you said, like footage, like what Konami's doing with Metal Gear. There's all those things that kind of go into it. And even, like I said, just, standard stock music that's used in games and things like that all have licensing. So yeah. And that's what people get paid to do. There are people who are paid to scour and find who's using their shit illegally.
I remember I watched a documentary in school. I think it was grade 12 for law. And what it was is it was a documentary on what this guy wanted to do is he wanted to use this song. It was like an old song or whatever from the 60s or whatever. And he wanted to use it in this film he was making. Well, he had to acquire the rights. The record company that had owned the rights went bankrupt, and then the music defaulted to the person who wrote it, who then sold his music rights to somebody he knew, who then left it in a will and testament to somebody else. And he had to do this backtrack to get this one song. And it took him literally 8 months to track down who owned that song, just for the person to go, no.
Yeah.
So it's challenging. And like, I think that's one of the most interesting things that I'm looking forward to about the GTA remasters is like, How much original music's going to be missing? Because like those games were kind of defined by their soundtracks. Like their soundtracks were killer.
Mm-hmm.
But
now, yeah, and Sam, I don't know, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that probably sort of like what happens with some of like the Forza games and some of the old racing games and things like that?
Right.
Like they get
That's
delisted
right.
because it's like it's cheaper to delist than to re-up those royalties. They just run out.
Yeah,
So if you own it,
right?
you're fine. If you own it, you're fine. But once it's
Yeah,
gone, usually
yeah.
it's a wrap.
Generally, they've talked about that a little bit, but like generally what happens with this stuff is you once you buy it, like you own it and it can't, it's not going to be revoked, and like you don't need to, because the licensing deal is with the company, not with you. You, the consumer, bought the game, you have access to it, et cetera,
Right.
et cetera. But like my understanding is they just do the math on it, and it gets to a certain point where it's like it would cost X amount of money to get these song licenses. And and probably car models and car makes for because the thing is that stuff is not negotiated. That is not a flat fee for the Forza franchise. That has to be negotiated per game. Same with Gran Turismo. Gran Turismo is the same thing. Like they have to negotiate that stuff per game. That's why some cars disappear. Not many, not often, but every once in a while that happens, and different cars and that sort of thing. So, which by the way is kind of one thing that makes it interesting for me is with Forza, with Gran Turismo 7 coming up, and then especially Forza Motorsport, not Forza Motorsport 8, just Forza Motorsport, they want these games to be more services and have a longer life. I'm wondering what that means in terms of the licenses. Like, is it part of the reason these games took longer is because they had to negotiate longer licenses that are going to last a lot longer, or even indefinitely? And if so, it was more expensive to be indefinitely. So if they had to pay that much more money, then they need the game to last a lot longer. I don't know. These are just questions I have because it's a very good point. It's a very good point.
Yep. Like the Tony Hawk remake, like what they probably had to go through to get that figured out. It's easier to get newer bands in there versus trying to go back and get to hit the nostalgia point. It's like, hey, we'll hit the nostalgia point all day on the actual game. But some of those bands you like probably won't be there. Now, the funny thing is, we're talking about Guardians before this. I'm listening to this soundtrack. I'm like, how much did they pay for this?
Oh, there's some bangers in there. It's a good soundtrack. It's a good list. I was scrolling on the digital jukebox there, going, "Yeah, this is awesome." And it's like, oh, you paid, huh?
And it would not be surprising if in 5 years, Guardians gets delisted.
Yep.
Because we've
even
seen that with other Marvel
just temporarily.
games.
Sometimes this stuff does get renegotiated. Alan Wake, before the remaster back in 2019, Alan Wake was temporarily pulled from storefronts, but then Microsoft told Remedy, "Hey, we'll handle it for you. We did the deal originally, so we'll go and re-up it and make sure it's fine." But there was a few months there where you couldn't buy Alan Wake. You can now, but it's fascinating. Really, it's fascinating, and
it's a deep rabbit hole, that whole licensing thing, and patents too, man. Oh my god, that whole patent thing is like, if you own some patents on some things, like there are people who like, go ahead and make that. Please make it.
Yep.
I got you right here. So. Yeah, because like, especially I'm working in like footwear. It's like we do a lot of lighted technology in my company, and you got to make sure, like, we patented a lot of things, but you also have to make sure that you're not using someone else's patent. Something is like a rain boot, like outsole. Someone has a patent on how that part of that technology may work. You have to make sure that you're not crossing into their patent. Using it. So they will get you. Like I said, there's somebody who is paid to just find it. Yeah.
Their job is to make your life miserable if you mess up.
Yeah. They're like, got him. I mean, you look at YouTube. Look how fast you get, like, your shit gets taken down.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if YouTube worked as fast to fix your shit when it goes down as they do to pulling your stuff down, you better.
Well, and that's the other side of the coin, right? Is because not to go off on a whole rabbit trail, because we have other stuff to do, I know, but YouTube's is mostly automated, right? Is my understanding. Like, YouTube does not actually handle that stuff. The companies just have bots that scroll and immediately submit a claim, and sometimes they don't get things quite right, and that's where it's a problem, because YouTube doesn't immediately come in and respond and all that.
An episode of our podcast got pinged for audio inclusion of a song from Drowning Pool, Let the Bodies Hit the Floor. And the moment that I got flagged was because I coughed into my microphone, and apparently it sounded like a particular moment in the song. So I got dinged for copyright. But yeah, copyright is something that's going to become very interesting over the next decade, probably, especially in an all digital future. We'll wait and see how that all turns out. But fun fact for you guys. Did you know indie games make money? You want to know how much money? Devolver Digital actually became publicly listed over the past week at an astounding $950 million valuation, which good for them. Their whole brand of being weird and thinking outside the box made them a little bit of money. So not only were they listed on the stock exchange, they also additionally acquired 3 studios as well. They acquired the Enter the Gungeon developers Dodge Roll, the game Reigns developer Nereal, and Firefly Games, the developers behind the Stronghold games. Most notably, Firefly are the only ones that have not previously worked with Devolver Digital prior. But man, Devolver Digital, baby. Look at that. Indie games making money. Being weird doing it. Oh, and also for noteworthy fact, PlayStation put a little 5%, Sony as a whole put a little 5% little purchase into Devolver because they're like, hey, we like you guys.
Right.
What do you guys think? Like, do you guys think the Devolver is going to continue to grow at the rate it's going anyway?
Yeah, I wouldn't see why not. Devolver is one of the more interesting publishers out there, and the choices that they make in the games that they back and things like that, and just how quirky they are. Like, they're always one of the most fun to watch around E3 time when they do their shows. It's like, so I can definitely see them growing. I just hope they don't lose that edginess, that quirkiness that they have.
Right. That would definitely. Sorry, Eric, were you done? I didn't mean to.
Yep.
I would definitely agree with that. Like, just stay who you are. I like Devolver. Well, the handful of times I've gotten to talk to them, they were great. I liked hanging out with those people. Small team as well. Like Devolver, not the studios they've acquired recently, is not a big company. It's like, what, 22 people? 23, 24? Like something like that. It's a real tiny group. So I like Devolver. They publish a lot of interesting, fun stuff. They publish a lot of slightly edgy stuff that I don't think a lot of other publishers want to touch, and they've been responsible for curating some great indie games. So good on them. Good.
Yeah. And if you ever need a perfect game that represents everything Devolver Digital does, just go play My Friend Pedro. That game encapsulates everything. The humor, the gameplay, everything. It just encapsulates what they do. And what I love most about Devolver is the fact that they will look at a one-person project and go, that's a really great idea. We're going to give you the money so that you can take the time to flesh this out. Like, My Friend Pedro was developed by one person. Like, one dude made a game that dynamic and complete with obviously some outsourcing help and everything else, but still to the point of. And then you see studios like another publisher, New Blood Interactive, is the same thing. Almost all their games that they publish are made by singular people or groups of 2 or 3 of them. Dusk just released on Switch. Go play that. That was made by one dude with his wife basically back developing, going, hey, that's stupid. Don't do that. And once again, just great quality games. So don't miss out on the indie market, man. It's a good place to play some games. And Devolver, from My Friend Pedro to Carrion to God, where's some of the other ones? I can't remember the other ones right now, but they have tons of great games. I think them and Annapurna are probably two of the best indie publishers right now. And I like the duality of Devolver and Annapurna, because Annapurna's like, here's these mature artistic focused
art
games.
House. Very art house, yeah.
Yeah, they're very art house, and then Devolver's like, hey, we have cocaine, let's go.
Very grindhouse.
Right.
Splatterfest, yeah.
Yeah.
But no, they're very good at picking games that fit them, that fit their unique like style, you know, like. So that's always been like the thing that's impressed me, you know. Because I know you mentioned Carrion. I mean, that game I love that game.
Yep.
So for anyone who hasn't played it, it's definitely good. But you know, you got like, you know, Shadow Warrior, you know, Hotline Miami, like all those games, you know. So those are all games that really fit them.
Yep, it's good. Hopefully they won't change much, and more indie games. Woohoo! Except roguelikes. No more roguelikes or Metroidvanias. Indie developers, stop, please. Speaking of things that won't stop, before we get into our Bethesda style discussion topic here, the Nintendo Switch, man. I cannot believe the numbers on I have eaten my foot so many times through the times I've podcasted, but my prediction of the Nintendo Switch is probably the biggest shoe I'm ever going to have to chew on. Because I was like, no one wants a hybrid handheld console. They either want a console or they want a handheld. They don't want both. Well, according to Nintendo, 92.87 million people know I'm wrong. So, lifetime sales, the Nintendo Switch is at 92.87 million units and is closing in, is within 10 million now of the Nintendo Wii, which is incredible. I gotta ask you guys, and this is something we talked about, I think, last year, and we kind of were like, maybe. Do you guys think the Nintendo Switch hits that unachievable PlayStation 2 sales number?
Well, considering it looks like it's going to clear the 3DS, it's very hard to get to that PS2 number.
That PS2 number, man, is just... The PS2 sold as a DVD player, not as a console. That's the thing. Like, being the cheap DVD player got it up there. So... Yeah. This is such a cowardly comment. What I'm going to say is this. If the Switch can't do it, I don't think anything else can. I'll choose to phrase it like that for now. I think the Switch has a solid shot. I do think there are questions, like it depends on, because in 2020 they said the Switch was halfway through its life cycle, right? That was I'm not pulling that out of thin air. I swear that Nintendo said that in 2020. And let's just say, so that's 3 years, 2017 to 2020. Let's throw in an extra year for the pandemic, right? Because chip shortages, the pandemic, that's been a thing. So let's throw in an extra year. So what we're saying is it's got 3 more years to do it. It's got 3 more years to hit an additional 60 million sold. It has slowed down. I do want to note that it is slowing down, but it is still fast is the overall thing. Man, I'm doing the math in my head here. It's tough. It's really tough.
It's tough because the thing is like it's hard to project. With Nintendo, you can kind of go, okay, so this is the trend of how the Switch is selling right now. But how's it going to sell when Breath of the Wild 2 comes out? How's the Switch going to sell when Metroid Prime 4 comes out? I don't think Bayonetta is as big of a deal as those two titles are. But the big thing for me is like, how much are people going to latch onto the OLED? Because if people see enough reasons to upgrade to the OLED, that's still another console sold, even though it's an original Switch owner, right? Is that upgrade going to be worthwhile for people to buy that console? And then, of course, people onboarding as new content comes on. I don't know. Like, I am also taking a cowardly bow out on this one because I agree with Sam. If the Switch doesn't do it, no other console is going to do it.
Yeah,
period.
which one came closest? The Wii?
In terms of console, home console was the PlayStation 4.
I was gonna say, the PS4 itself came closest.
PS4
right?
was 116 million.
Yeah.
Game Boy Color was 118 million, and the Nintendo DS was just shy by 1 million. Mind you, the DS was on the market for. But yeah, what about you, Eric? Do you think they'll hit that number, or?
I'm going down the coward route with you guys. I mean, yeah, if the Switch can't achieve it, I don't know who else will. I mean, trajectory wise, they look like they're heading that way. So, but they still have some ground to cover.
Yeah.
If they achieve the PS4 number, right, and it still looks like there's daylight, then possibly.
Yeah.
But if they just barely get the PS4 number and it's coming to a point where the Wii is slowing down, the Switch is slowing down, like, and not, like month to month sales, then we might know where we're at.
I think too, one of the big factors is actually, it's not a factor. Sorry, I backpedal that. That's stupid. I was gonna be like, well, if they ever put a price discount on the Switch, but I'm stupid. Nintendo, they're like, you want a Wii U? $200. I'm like, what? It's dead.
Yeah. Typically, the only time they discount a console is when they're clearancing it because the other one is now the main one.
Yep.
So I saw 3DS is going for like $100.
Yep.
Because they were clearing them out. That's about it. But the Wii U, it was funny because the Wii U never got discounted, but I think it's because they just didn't. They were like, just send them back. We don't give a shit at this point. Like, who cares? If someone wants one, if you still want to spend the $200, like, yeah.
That's the problem, right? Is it was so unpopular. They're like, no, if you actually want this, you'll pay full price. We know you will.
Yeah.
Because no one wants it.
Yeah, they just wanted out of it, so they didn't even start a mandate for clearancing it. Just like, oh yeah. Okay. So
you know what? That was the saddest point of the pandemic, is when I went into my GameStop, I was like, oh, what you guys got for consoles? They're like, we're sold out of everything. I'm like, everything? They're like, yep. People even bought the Wii U's. I'm like, damn, what a sad affair we are.
I remember Forte saying that, like, his store, like, they sold everything. He's like, yeah, even the Wii. I wonder how many they got back, though.
That's the question, right?
Actually, if you want interesting, and like, once again, I'm not trying to do one of those things where my small little tiny town represents the mass market. My GameStop currently has a call for trade-ins for PlayStation 4s and Xbox Ones right now, where they're offering almost $300 in trade credit because they can't get used consoles right now. Like, they have an order form of people trying to buy PS4s and Xbox Ones, and they're like, we don't have any used ones. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm looking at my PlayStation 4 like, was gonna put God of War Ragnarok in you to watch you explode, but maybe I'll trade you in for 300 credit instead. That might be the way. But yeah. Nintendo Switch is gonna switch, and their software numbers are gonna be goddamn insane. Goddamn Luigi's Mansion 3, 10 million copies. All right. Now we get to talk about my boy, my thumbnail. The guy who's going to be featured in every thumbnail of this show for the month of November. Todd Howard did a little bit of an interview with IGN. Once again, I believe, this was with Ryan McCaffrey, correct? Yeah. So shout out to Ryan, getting all those interviews that I can only dream of. Always enjoy his interviews. So, and Todd Howard's always curious little fella when it comes to, I'm never going to talk to Todd Howard if I keep saying things like that. But basic sense, they got to sit down and talk about, Bethesda Game Studios. And long story short, I'm trying to TLDR this as much as I can. He touched on the Elder Scrolls 5, saying that the sales numbers are higher than 30 million copies sold. though he didn't provide a new number. Obviously, it's selling, or they wouldn't continue to re-release it. Still my most anticipated game in November. So when asked in regards to single-player games, Howard responded with that solo experiences are part of who we are. Howard also noted that the team has dabbled with social elements that aren't necessarily multiplayer games. So it's not impossible these kind of features would make their way into future Bethesda Game Studios titles. Still, Howard makes it clear that Bethesda Game Studios' passion is single-player role-play games. Now we have explained Sam's name for the evening. Now I will pass this over to the guy who I'm paraphrasing his report on. Sam, what did you think about all this? Because I came into this late. I'm uber unprepared for this, so I'm on talking points. So give me the details. What's going on, man?
Yeah, well, first off, I would say that my report, I really do encourage people to go listen to Ryan McCaffrey's full interview. It's a really good one. He did a great job with it. He does a good job with the IGN Unfiltered series, so I would recommend people actually listen to just the full thing. I like casual conversations between developers and journalists. It's just a fun thing. But I think the most important thing to me was Todd Howard, just basically being humble and explaining, Fallout 76 was a learning curve. It was a learning experience. People are happy with the game now and where it's at and a lot of the stuff they've added. I know you and Ivan are, in particular, Nick, I know you guys have played it a lot, but he was explaining that while we want to experiment, here and there with stuff, at the end of the day, like Starfield is a single player. Elder Scrolls 6 is a single player game, and they know that's where their focus is. And that's good because at the end of the day, I like single player games. Eric and I share that definitely, doesn't mean I'm opposed to multiplayer games, doesn't mean I'm opposed to co-op games, but I like single player stuff. What I am curious about though is, Eric, what you thought of this news, given your infamous love of Skyrim.
Oh man, Skyrim. I'm not surprised. I wasn't surprised when that announcement happened because I said it was going to happen. I was like, eventually we're going to get around to another version of Skyrim.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, again, I make fun of it, but to each their own. If people continue wanting it, can continue putting it out. Go for it. It is good to hear that they still have a focus on single player because I do remember that was something that they planted a flag on last generation. In the midst of everyone talking multiplayer, everything had to be multiplayer. They definitely doubled down on the single player thing. I understand why something like a Fallout 76 happened. It was a company figuring out, hey, well, we're putting out these single player games, but they don't seem to be gaining traction with people. People seem to be ignoring it. And the kids nowadays seem to want these things that they play together and jump into these worlds. So probably the best thing that happened for them is getting like the backing of a Microsoft. So they can focus on the things that they do best and the things that they like to do. Because I would like to see a passionate Bethesda without worrying about keeping the lights on, keeping people employed and keeping, people fed and everything like that. And it's just like unleashing them and letting them kind of do their thing. Same with the Ninja Theory, same with, an Obsidian and these different talented developers who had to worry about so much. We saw what happened when a Double Fine no longer had to worry about the budget and the bill. Like, let's just make what we want to make and do it. We got a fantastic game out of that. So kind of seeing Todd double down on that, even though I always make the joke with you guys, I'm a Bethesda Softworks stan over a Bethesda proper stan.
Sure.
Seeing what they can do without having to necessarily bank on the tried and true. Because if you really think about it, over their illustrious career of the last 2 decades or whatever, they have definitely leaned very much on the things that made them popular because those are the things that are pretty much a little more guaranteed. So let's now see what they can come up with without having those shackles on them of the day to day.
Right.
Yeah.
So
that's definitely fair. That's definitely fair analysis. Nick, anything from you?
Yeah, for me, it's kind of anchoring my excitement for Starfield. And by anchoring, I mean, like, I was not so hot on Starfield when it was really originally announced because I had fears. I was like, I like Fallout 76 as its own contained thing, and they did a great job of fixing that game and making it great in its own measure. But I love Bethesda for their RPGs. I don't want RPG elements in a Bethesda game. I want an RPG. And the more they talk about Starfield and the more I've seen Todd Howard talk about it and the few snippets from Pete Hines about it over the past few months, I'm really excited for this because this is Bethesda's first foray into a new IP in terms of their proper studios in decades, essentially. So it's really exciting. You know, we've done the post-apocalypse. We've done a magical setting. Let's take it to space next. And I want that moment that they deliver in their games, like when you first exit the vault in Fallout 3, or when the map first opens up in Elder Scrolls 5 with Skyrim. I want those moments. I want that moment again with Starfield and the dialogue mattering and so many things. I don't have to list them all out because it's things people complained about with Fallout 4 that they didn't like or things like that. But I just want Bethesda to do Bethesda things, which is essentially a very long form way of saying what Eric said is I don't want them to have to worry about making projects to keep the lights on. Do the things that make your studio amazing.
Right.
And like seeing Todd Howard legitimately excited about something new that they're doing has me excited. So bring on Starfield. And from the few snippets of that interview I did get to catch before the show, he seems really, really confident in that Starfield release date. Which is interesting because I was not as confident in that release date as a lot of people aren't. So if they manage to keep that release date, I will be thoroughly impressed.
Speaking of the release date, I mean, I agree with everything you said. I think that was well put. I definitely agree with you. There was one funny tidbit in the interview. I didn't include in my news, but it was really funny, where he was asked about the reasoning for the whole 11/11 obsession. You know, why 11/11? You know, 11/11 for Skyrim, 11/11 for Anniversary Edition, now 11/11 for Starfield. And Todd said there's a couple of reasons, but one of the big ones is so in Europe you don't have to flip the day and the month. It can just stay the same for the marketing. So I was like, all right, you know what? Fair enough. That's 100% the lazy guy. Man, I don't want to have to change this over there. Nah, we're just one version.
Straight up.
Fair enough.
I like it. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm definitely going to have to sit down, listen to that whole interview. And you never know. Maybe we'll get Eric Butterknife swinging for the 16th attempt with Skyrim's 20th anniversary edition a decade from now.
Nothing is impossible. Nothing is impossible.
The day that I will always remember until my dying day was the day that Eric sent us the video footage from his backyard with him using a butter knife.
Right. Right. And then didn't I reply with me with my brothers on a walk, whacking one of them with a stick and making the noise.
Yeah.
Oh, that was good.
Messy.
Yeah, that was a fun video.
All right. Got some community questions to answer. And there's some fun ones in here. And there's some not so fun ones. So buckle up.
Don't you have one you saved from last week? For Eric,
yes, I do. That's the first one we're kicking off for.
Good.
All right, Nick, Eric, you're on the hot seat. You guys talk about Sega all the time in the Dreamcast, but give me your two definitive Sega Dreamcast games. And Sam, you're excluded from this because you're the baby.
It's true.
It's funny because Sam's only like 2 years younger than me, I think. So not that much of a baby.
What can you do?
Man, two, huh?
Yeah.
You want me to go first? You want to do 1-1? I go one. You go one.
Do you want to go first or?
Yep, I'll go first. Number one of the games I put in probably some the most hours into. I won't say the most hours, but tons of hours into Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Yeah, that was just beautiful on the Dreamcast with the fight stick.
I never got to experience that with a fight stick. I'm so sad.
Still got my Dreamcast fight stick too. The thing was built like a tank.
That was everything with the Dreamcast was built like a tank, though.
It is absolutely. That's 100%.
Like you could commit murder with any assortment of attachments that came with the Sega Dreamcast because they're like, this needs to survive the nuclear war, right? Yeah, absolutely. This needs to survive a nuclear war.
Yeah, and I don't really, whoever put this question in, I don't really like it because you put it to 2. Like, there's so many like favorites from the Dreamcast. It's just,
I mean, I missed the Dreamcast boat, and even I'm going to come in and tell you Soul Calibur, man. I mean, come on.
Yeah, that was my next one, but go ahead, Nick. Yep, Nick, where you at?
So this one's going to be stupid as hell, but I remember when my friend down the block had Dreamcast, and I spent all the time playing Dreamcast with him. But the NFL 2K2 had no business being as much fun as it did.
Yep.
No business. Still one of my favorite football games to this day.
Yep. I will never forget seeing the thing with the Dreamcast, it was just the perfect storm of launch lineup, advertising, and just moving gaming into a different era. The games didn't look anything like where we were before. So when you saw 2K playing for the first time, you're like, I mean, you go back and look at it now, this is not, obviously, it does not hold up. But back then, when you first saw it versus Madden, you're like, holy shit, that looks real.
Yeah.
Look at how the receivers, like they're one-hand catching. They're like coming back to the huddle. They're doing like, it was just like, it was insane. The first time you saw Sonic running the opposite direction and the killer whales jumping behind them, it's just like, that was like the same level of seeing Mario 64 for like the first time. It was just a different level. And like I said, the marketing around it and everything was just brilliant. So, but yeah, 2K is a good pick, man. That's definitely in there for me too. I put tons of that in there, doing it on the 56K modem, typing up, talking trash on the keyboard. The people.
hey, E3 2018, when I was housing with the Iron Lords, we were hanging out there. There was a Dreamcast in that house. 2K is the one we pulled out. And I'll tell you what, there is still... Sorry, go ahead, Nick.
I'm almost 90% certain that Cognito just travels with a Dreamcast in a backpack at this point.
On brand. On brand.
But that was in the actual house, though. That was like the person who had owned the
no. That wasn't
him in there, right?
Yeah, no, that wasn't him. Like it was just there, and there were a couple of games. Soul Calibur was the other one. There was Soul Calibur there, so we had some fun, man. 2K, like I'm not a sports guy, and sure the graphics were outdated, but man, you can tell the passion that was poured into that game. Like you could, it mattered,
and the passion was there, Sam, because it freaked EA out to where they're like, we have to just level the playing field and not compete because these guys are eating our lunch. And when they really ate their lunch is when they're like putting on a game that had a better presentation all around, and then they're like, and we're gonna make it $20. Like people thought it was a typo. Like, this game's $20 and it's better than Madden. And EA was like, hell no. To this day, I'm like, the biggest mistake the NFL ever made and still is making is giving the license solely to Madden.
Yep.
So, but no, 2K is a good pick, Nick. And like Sam throughout, like my other pick would have been Soul Calibur. I put tons of hours into that, but I could go on and on, man. Ready to Rumble. Jet Set Radio. Like, NBA 2K. Like it can keep going, man.
Yeah. Actually, I'll throw out a weird one because this will be an interesting little history bit I've never talked about. So for a lot of people, their first online gaming experience was most likely with like the original Xbox with Halo or something, right? My original online experience was actually Quake 3 Arena on the Dreamcast and playing multiplayer on that. And it was just like, I remember just going to my buddy's place and he's like, hey, do you want to play some Quake? And like, I had like the original Quake on my computer. I was like, oh, I love Quake. He's like, yeah, but do you want to play it against other people? I'm like, not on the computer? He's like, no, like on the console. And I remember being like, I wasn't even 10 at this point. I was like, we could do that?
And that version of Quake 3 was really good.
Yeah. Like the Dreamcast definitively had some amazing games.
Mm-hmm.
Like either from performance, graphically, just the whole thing. Like I remember, like I didn't play it when it came out on the Dreamcast. I played it like in 2019 and regretted waiting that long to play it because it was very old and outdated by that point. But Shenmue on Dreamcast, when that came out, I was like, that's real. That's not video game. That's real life. And now I look at it and go, wow, we've come a long way.
Yeah. Well, hell yeah. Crazy Taxi.
Yep.
Freaking Power Stone. House of the Dead with the light gun.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. And the crazy thing, when you really think about the Dreamcast, like of where that Sega really kind of saw, where this whole thing was going, with that console. It was sadly, it was ultimately too late for them as a company with all the bad moves that they made. But the fact that you could buy the and switch out the modem so you could have the Ethernet modem, and at a time where many people didn't have a fiber connection in their house or a high-speed internet connection in their house, but you could get the Ethernet port to put into your Dreamcast, and that was like forward thinking. I know a lot I still look at the Xbox, the OG Xbox, as the spiritual successor to the Dreamcast. And I know the OG Xbox gets a lot of the credit for the Ethernet port and online connectivity, but I'm like, the Dreamcast was the one that was kind of the linchpin to kind of getting that in there, and getting that going. And I think, Microsoft, being partners like with Sega and a lot of that, took a lot of those and carried the torch, forward, in very good ways, especially even from a library standpoint. They adopted a lot of the games that were Dreamcast staples, and put them on the Xbox, the OG. And that's something that really attracted me to the OG Xbox, and they took the ball and ran further with it. They were like having a hard drive on board, being able to rip your music, your CDs to it, things like that. It was just, that period was a remarkable time, like around games.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like I still go back every now and again and watch Dreamcast commercials because it just takes me to a nostalgia place.
Yeah.
In my gaming career, it was just like one of the best times in gaming.
Totally. So such a conjunction, good Lord, conjunction of technology in the games, but also online starting to come together. And it's just, I know I missed the boat and I'm not the one to talk, obviously, because I couldn't even buy it at the time, but they were just a little too early. And there were just a couple of things going against it.
You're still a student of this thing. Like you love and care for it. So it's nothing to go back and watch. And that's the great thing. You can go back and look at archives and stuff and just kind of, and you have people like me to talk to and kind of get that feel. I mean, it's definitely different in experiencing it, and that whole movement. Yeah. But through the PlayStation to the N64 to the Dreamcast and again, moving forward, you just knew gaming was going into a whole different stratosphere.
Yeah.
And then when the PS2 hit, it was just like lightning, and it just went. It was here to stay. It was no longer like, I would say niche. I was to say niche. It was still niche, but it was getting the attention, of mainstream. It was like, and the Dreamcast definitely ushered a lot of that in, and it deserved better than it got. And it was a seminal time in gaming. But good question though.
Yeah, and honest, all intents and purposes too, is what Dreamcast absolutely deserves the credit for. Is they had the best fishing game that's ever been on a console ever. Sega Bass Fishing is like the best fishing game.
The peripherals in general were just king on that console. They thought of everything.
If I had $1 for every time as a kid I got smacked with that goddamn Sega Dreamcast fishing rod because it'd be like, oh, I've got it. Your friend would hit your hand as you're like doing the motion, just knock yourself in the face. Full contact sport. Bass
and
fishing.
Think about how crazy a game. Like people don't often bring it up, but Seaman, just the weirdest. Like you talk about weirdness in games like today, nothing was as weird as Seaman. Creepy. I never owned it because it was a little too out there for me. I was like, it just creeps me out looking at it.
Yeah,
but man,
my best friend growing up, his dad didn't really like video games, but his uncle that lived with them loved video games. And what he did is the moment a new system would drop, he'd buy the new system and all the launch games. And then he'd buy every single game that came out for that console. So like he had like a shelf of just Dreamcast games and a shelf of original Xbox games and everything else. I actually got back in contact with him. I was like, you have any of those? He's like, oh, I sold them at a yard sale years ago for like $2 a piece. I'm like, Lord.
Yeah. Actually, and again, capricious youth and you want to fund the next thing, like sold. I still have my Dreamcast. I still have like some of my favorite games for it. But I did sell off some of them to pay for other things. And I think my biggest gaming regret is selling my Nintendo 64 with all the games. I mean, I had like 50 some odd games, but I had all the major ones. Like I had the gold cards for both, the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. I had GoldenEye. They were all mint in box.
Ooh.
Like everything was like pristine, and I sold it for probably a few $100.
Man.
And that's my biggest gaming regret. I still wish I had all that.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yep.
So,
oh man, we gotta do just an episode. We're gonna get a bunch of people that love Dreamcast together, and I'm just gonna host it. I'm just gonna sit there and listen to everybody talk about it because I could just wax nostalgia on that console because it was like the first console I played with friends. And like, you're in your friend's basement. It reeks of stale cigarettes because everyone still smoked inside in the house because that wasn't bad for your kids at that point, apparently. And like, I don't know, man. There's something so nostalgic about that. That's why I love the original Xbox too, because it was the same thing. Because after the Dreamcast, we went to the original Xbox. It was like, oh, this is like the thing. Like it was every Sunday in that basement playing all these different games and just.
Yeah, like I said, it was crazy. Like you think about like the VMUs, like in the Dreamcast, that you could use for playing 2K. Like you could look at your plays on it, and so people couldn't see what you were like picking and stuff, And then the VMUs could pop out, and then you could play like little Tamagotchi games on them, and they kept time. You could take them with you and stuff. It's crazy.
The most depressing thing my mom ever did to me was try to teach me how to type. So she dragged me over to my friend's house. She's like, you're going to play Dreamcast. I'm like, cool. And it was like typing House of the Living Dead or whatever.
Yeah.
To type words to kill the zombie. Oh my God.
Yep. Typing
I was like, wow, Mom, you even managed to make video games not fun. That's a talent.
Yeah. Like I said, I still have like my light gun. I still have like the, I don't think I have the keyboard anymore. No, I don't have the keyboard anymore, but yeah, I still have my fight stick and everything, but the light gun, I mean, without a CRT, it's useless. You can't use it on anything else.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Yeah. All right. So on to the next question. So it's into the fall season, and what is your favorite fall dessert? Doesn't have to be pumpkin themed or anything else, but the weather's getting colder, except for Eric.
Well, it was 63 here this morning.
Okay.
Nick's like, shut up.
Hold on, I'm just looking this up here. Oh, come on!
Yeah, over the weekend it got down to like low 60.
Hold on, I'm gonna just see. I'm just gonna do some quick math here.
Oh boy, what's he about to hit us with?
Right.
Yeah, our high today for reference was 46 degrees Fahrenheit.
Nice.
God damn it. I hate this place.
In the 50s for me, in case anyone wanted to know, it's 53 right now. So
So Carolina gets cold. Okay, Carolina, adding that to the list of
Oh,
states.
Carolina can get very cold.
Carolina does. Normally, it's just November, December, January. Like it is just those 3 months. But we have the capacity to get cold, unlike Florida.
I like the sound of that. Okay, Carolina, adding that to the list. So for me, I'm super, super basic. Pumpkin pie, boom, done. Give me a big old slice of that. Specifically my mom's, because my mom manages to put liquor into everything she cooks. And she does a Jack Daniels pumpkin pie that is just mwah.
Mhm.
And then like you have the Jack for shots afterwards. It's great. Great time.
Nice.
Eric, what about you?
Let's see. The thing is, like a fall dessert. I would pick pumpkin pie. I don't have it very often because being Southern, like you do sweet potato pie. And the thing with sweet potato pie, Sam will attest, there's no fall, summer, spring, any time of the year.
There is only sweet potato pie.
Yeah, there's any time of the year. There's a time for sweet potato pie. So.
Okay, so you guys are just making me more inclined to move down here. Sweet potato pie all year. The temperatures aren't cold as hell.
Yeah, this is a tough question for me because in like South Florida, there's not really like a fall dessert. So we picked it by default. Like it would be like pumpkin pie or something like that.
Yeah. I actually have to say it's kind of the same thing here. Now, if you want to say winter, I got a wide range of options. I got some stuff I can pick for you. Winter, we kind of go nuts here with the desserts. But for
all right, humor me with some winter desserts. Like you guys are from the southern area of the United States. I'm from the southern part of Canada, which doesn't make a goddamn difference.
So for me, butterscotch fudge. Man, I love butterscotch fudge. Butterscotch fudge is fantastic. Just plain peanut butter fudge is good. Chocolate's great. All that's fine stuff. Good. But butterscotch that's the one that gets me. That one is, whew.
Yeah. And again, like I have things that I equate with the winter dessert because I get it as a gift from a friend of mine, but she'll typically make it whenever I ask for. But usually in the holidays, my friend makes me peanut butter and jelly cookies.
Oh, okay. That's good.
And they're amazing. So it's a peanut butter cookie. It's like a tart almost. So it's a peanut butter cookie about that around. And in the middle, she makes it's like a sticky, like jelly, like grape jelly version. It's fantastic.
Nice.
We fight over them. But that's, yeah. Because I don't really do fruitcake. I'm not a fruitcake fan.
No, I don't know someone who is a fruitcake. I've never known
goes for it.
I'm pretty sure that like fruitcakes are just like the general consensus. It's like the old, the Donald Trump quote about the can of soup. Pretty sure that's the only purpose for a fruitcake. It's like assault and battery is the only use for these things.
And then you might get into something like the banana nut bread or something like that, or something like that. But my mom, she'll do those like year round. So again,
see, that was my problem. Is like growing up conditionally poor. My mom was like, what's a cheap fruit that you can buy on a daily basis at a grocery store? Banana. My God, every single thing we had either was made out of potatoes or banana. And sometimes we'd get both, and it'd be the worst. It'd be like, Mom, these pancakes are really weird. She's like, eat your potato pancakes with bananas on top. I'm like, okay.
Wow.
But yeah, I'm pretty boring, Fall is pumpkin pie and whiskey, but whiskey's a 365 days of the year thing too. So
don't limit whiskey.
Don't limit whiskey. Yeah, we don't do that. We don't do that around here. All right. We're going to call ourselves out here. Hey, guys, what's that one cardinal sin in your gaming knowledge? What's that one franchise that everyone has supposedly played, but you have not touched? And why is that?
Who wants to go first?
I think Nick should go first.
Yeah, I agree. I agree on this.
All right. So, you know me, big RPG guy, Western RPGs specifically. I'm not a big JRPG guy, but I'm a big Western RPG guy.
Sure.
Never touched a Dragon Age game in my life.
Get out.
Never even
Get
looked at
out.
them.
Get out.
We'll both have to get out because I'm the same.
Oh my God.
I know.
You know the biggest turnoff about Dragon Age is to me is when you talk to a Dragon Age fan, they get all excited. It's like me with Baldur's Gate, right? They get all excited and they're like, okay, the first one, that's amazing. Second one, don't talk about it. Then go play Inquisition. And I'm like, wait.
I'll talk about the second one. I actually disagree on that. We don't have time for that conversation, though. There's a schism. We don't have time for that conversation. Wow, yeah, man, that is, you know what? Not the other two. 2 and Inquisition I can forgive. Origins is such a staple, though. Origins is
I actually
such
picked up Origins based off what you said once, Sam. Like, I just haven't gotten to play it yet.
Yeah, like I can forgive the other two, but not Origins is just like this. I'm trying not to be sacrilegious, but it's kind of the equivalent of saying, oh yeah, like I know all about fantasy, but Tolkien, who's that? Like it's not quite there, but it's almost. Origins is a staple. Origins is like in 101 required reading for Western role-playing games. Because that one's then now I'm gonna be upset. I'm going to be upset.
Well, see, the funny part is the worst part is I didn't play a Mass Effect game till 2021.
Yeah, you slipped in on that one.
Yeah,
you slipped in real good.
I'm literally the biggest BioWare fan because of Baldur's Gate. I'm like, there are other games? Who? Like, I played Jade Empire. That's a great game.
I feel like we need to start defining what BioWare fan means then. But again.
All right, someone else. Eric, what is your cardinal sin here?
So it's like a popular franchise that people get jazzed up about, but I would say for me, Fallout.
Okay, that's fair. That's pretty fair.
Yeah, I've just never, which is so freaking crazy because I really love the Outer Worlds, but I think it's because the Outer Worlds really, it was more like it respected my time and it didn't. It really just hit the mark. It just hit because I like RPGs. I like Western RPGs. I do like story. I like choice. I do like those things, but it's just something about the way Fallout played or the way it kind of, I don't know. It just never grabbed me.
I will say, did you try them at all? I'm not trying to be that guy. I'm just curious.
No. That's fair. That's completely fair. I tried Fallout 3.
Okay. All right.
And I went into 4 far enough to create a character, and I was like, I can't stand these ham faces, and I'm out.
All right, I mean, that's fair. I was just going to say, I definitely think once you got into the gameplay rhythm of 4, you would like it more than something like Skyrim. That's all where my head went. But that's fair. That's totally fair.
And I thought because of the across the board popularity of it, of one day giving New Vegas a go just to see how that goes for me.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Because that one was Obsidian. That is a lot of the Outer Worlds.
I know, Nick, but
Nick,
you asked the question. This is the Cardinal Sin.
But I'm not getting the answers I wanted.
What do you mean you're not getting the answers you wanted? It's you and him who have gone. You're disappointing yourself here, man.
Well, actually, in Eric's defense, when I first played Fallout 3, I bought it for the Xbox 360. I played Fallout 3. I played it for about 2 hours, and I was like, why the fuck am I a baby? And I uninstalled the game. Like, I fucking tossed the disc some desolate corner of my room. And I started dating my wife, and she came over. And, like, I didn't know her from anyone. Like, we had talked for, like, a week, and she was over at my house, and she's like, oh, you have a 360. I love video games. I'm like, oh, cool. Da, da, da. And she's like, oh, you have Fallout 3? And I'm like, am I going to pretend to like this game for a pretty girl? Absolutely.
Smart man.
And so I ended up playing it with her for like 4 hours that night, and she went home, and then I kept playing, and I ended up falling in love with the game, despite the pretty woman that was influencing me to play the game originally. But yeah, I could definitely see how someone could bounce off Fallout 3. It's perfectly reasonable, honestly. But yeah, if there's ever to be a Fallout game to jump into, 4 for its modern sensibilities. But
especially
if you ever
with the 60 FPS now through Xbox FPS boost, especially with that now. Yeah.
Or if you really want to dive into the best storytelling in Fallout, definitely New Vegas.
Yeah. Rougher visually, but the best storytelling.
Yeah.
Sure.
I was like, if you want the jankiest, New Vegas is also the go-to for that one.
Right. Okay.
But yeah.
Hey, but awesome. you said Cardinal Sin, man. I figured in this podcast, that's one of the biggest.
Oh, it is. It is. We're gonna have some interesting. We're gonna have some interesting conversations going into Starfield, I'm sure. But that might actually be something that goes. Well, we'll talk about that another time. Okay, so this is really difficult for me because, as best I can tell, unless I'm missing something, I've hit the pillars that I know of. It's more of the games that get talked about a lot, but maybe weren't the $20-30 million sellers. So it's kind of what games. This is kind of tough for me. Because I mean I've openly admitted that Final Fantasy 15 was the first JRPG I've played. I've openly admitted that. So I guess if we want to go that route, I've never played the OG Final Fantasies. I've never played a Dragon Quest game. I'm not sure if that counts, if that's what you're looking for, but I've never touched any of those.
There's definitely a certain buff, like 40-year-old guy that'd be pretty upset about some of these things you're saying right now.
For sure.
Go on.
For sure. But like, I don't know. There's nothing coming to mind for me that's on the level of none of the nonsense you two can go for. I'm pulling up. I'm coming up blank. I'm trying to think here. There's got to be something. Okay, here. This is probably the best one I can give you. I never played GTA 4. Never touched it.
You never went bowling?
No, never even, because at least Vice City, I played at a friend's house. And like I touched it. I didn't finish it, but I played it. But I have never touched GTA 4 ever. It's actually
really funny, and I don't know if you'll co-sign me with this one, Eric. But it's so weird with the GTA games because I feel like everyone played the GTA games, but very few people ever beat the GTA games.
Yeah. Everyone kind of owns them and touches them, but not many people finish the whole thing. And it's interesting because I actually never finished GTA 4. I played GTA 3 like insane. A lot of that was novelty. Vice City, sure. I don't think I ever actually finished the story on Vice City. Mm-hmm. I have GTA 5, started it but never finished it.
Yeah.
GTA 4, I played a good portion of it. And I kind of find it funny that people kind of go in on like Dark Souls because you have to like do things over and over again. Or, if you die, you have to kind of... GTA is really no different. Because when you die, like if you fail a mission, you have to get back to the starting point, drive all the way the fuck back to where you were, start the mission again across the map. And I was like, you know what? No, I'm not doing this anymore. Because that's when I started noticing, like, those flaws people talk about.
Yeah.
And numerous podcasts now started to come out. It's like, especially if you've gone back to play those games, without any remastering or anything like that, you realize Rockstar is good at like story. They're good at, world building, all that stuff. They are not the best at control in their games. They really aren't. And I'm like, no, I'm not driving across this map again. And if I die because I failed the mission or something happened, and a lot of times you get glitches to where something blows up next to you for no apparent reason and you died from it. And then I'm like, why can't I start right at the mission?
Yeah.
And I was like, I can't do this anymore.
That's why I think it was a very big deal when they said that instant mission restarts are coming to the Definitive Edition trilogy. Right. They said
they knew that was a problem.
Yeah.
They knew that was horseshit. So that's why I find people funny when they're like, I don't want to do all that over in Dark Souls. I'm like, you did it in GTA.
So hold up. Eric's Cardinal Sin's Fallout, mine's Dragon Age, and Sam's like, I didn't go bowling in GTA 4. This man.
Well, look, I'm sorry. Like I've hit the big RPGs. Again, my admitted JRPG newbie-ish aside, and even that I'm like starting to correct. I'm starting to play them. I played most of the. I don't know, man. I'm trying to think of something on the scale of y'all, and I'm coming up short. GTA 4 is the best one I can get.
I think the only gaming knowledge gap that I can point to with you that I know of is the original Half-Life, and that would be it.
Yeah, and even then, that falls under I literally wasn't around. You know, like I couldn't.
Oh yeah, okay, never mind. I'm like, the game's not that old, and I'm like, oh shit.
Oh yes, it is.
All right. So our last question, it's a bit of a doozy. So I know Nicholas has been pretty open about stating that he dislikes Cyberpunk because he found the RPG elements to be very light. But while I played through Cyberpunk 2077, I found the RPG elements to be very heavy, and it was a very in-depth RPG. What do you guys consider heavy RPG elements? What makes a game definitively an RPG to you versus, say, a RPG light? So
that's a good question, actually. That's a you hear RPG thrown around pretty lightly these days.
Yeah.
So
and like a perfect example is like when people say Horizon Zero Dawn's an RPG, I'm like, But if you told me Horizon Forbidden West is an RPG, I'd be like, you might make a case for it from what we've seen so far. Maybe. More so than the first game anyway. But it's really interesting when we start breaking this down because it's like, what defines an RPG? Like, even if you get into the arguments of JRPGs versus Western RPGs, is like, I don't find JRPGs to be role-playing games because you're playing a character that you don't get to make decisions on and you just follow a story. It's very overall linear.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, that's not role-playing to me. Role-playing is playing a character that I've created that I can craft their decisions around. Now, I would never go on social media and be like, JRPGs aren't actually RPGs. I'm not that stupid. But the thing that disappointed me and how I weigh an RPG versus, say, an RPG light is the impact of those decisions. And I think with Cyberpunk, the reason why I refer to it as RPG light versus a hardcore RPG is because aside from the end credits where they're like, this person did this because you did this, aside from that, your decisions really don't feel like they have any impact on the world around you. Like the city goes on, everything goes on, no matter really what you decide to do. The first opening mission where they gave you all these options of things you could do and how it affects things and how it kind of rolled out, I was like, this is going to be amazing. And then it literally didn't happen for the rest of the game. I had no other mission like that first mission. And I was like, oh, okay, well, cool, I guess. But that's why, like, Cyberpunk to me, like, you can call it an RPG and whatever the case, but I don't find it a great RPG because it doesn't have that impact of your decisions aside from a slideshow at the end being like, your decision caused this. I don't like that. I like seeing the world craft around your decisions. So long-winded, roundabout. But yeah, what about you guys? Whichever one of you wants to tackle this one.
Eric, do you want to go or?
Yeah, so based on that metric, is Red Dead Redemption 2 an RPG?
I mean, it's a chore to play, so maybe.
Or is that more of a JRPG? You said it's a chore to play.
I hate that I'm going to say this, but I think it's more of a JRPG than it is a WRPG, and I hate that we're having this discussion.
There it is.
There
it is. The most clippable moment of this show ever so far is coming to the conclusion that Red Dead Redemption 2 is a JRPG. But go on, Eric. Go on.
Or is it a survival game?
Survival elements, definitely.
Survival,
I think
because if Arthur doesn't eat, it's not like the game is over or you just peter out, right? Like he can still continue on, right?
No.
Right.
You are encouraged to eat. You are encouraged to
Right.
rest. You get gameplay buffs from it, but it isn't
And cleaning the horse and all that stuff.
Right. And so in case this conversation, just to be very clear for anyone who's listening, what this means is genres can blend. You can have elements and things from different genres in stuff. And I think that's part of the reason, somewhat understandably, why RPG has become a commodified term. It's because it's easy to apply. So what I'm going to say is this. RPGs, to me, Western RPGs, because JRPGs are a whole other bucket, and I agree with you, they're a completely different kind of game, and I want to get into that. Western RPGs, what makes an RPG to me is, do I feel like the time I have invested in this character matters? That can take a variety of forms. That can take a wide variety of things. Dragon Age Origins, for example, the game that neither of you fools have played, allows you to be a lot of different things. You can be a human, you can be an elf, you can be a dwarf. You might have grown up in poverty on the streets. You might have grown up in royalty, and you're next in line for a kingship. But at the end, it's your character, so customizable. That is a Western RPG. That is an RPG, definitely. The decisions you make matter. You live, people live and die based on what you do. Contrast that, Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. At least one of you's in the clear here. I'm on to you, Nick. I'm on to you. Geralt of Rivia is Geralt of Rivia. You're not changing that. You have options, but at the end of the day, anything he does is within the ballpark of what it is reasonable for him to do based on his personality that has been established. He has options, but they can all be justified based on his history. That does not, however, at the end of the day, people still live and die based on what you choose to do. Relationships are formed or severed or both. Things change, things can play out differently. You are role-playing Geralt of Rivia, not some super custom character, but it is still role-playing. So that's what it is to me. It can take on a variety of forms, but I want the choices I make need to matter and be reflected in the world and the characters and the relationships around me. That's the best way I can put it.
Okay. Yeah. What about you, Eric?
No, I agree with Sam on that. If we're asking the question like, what makes RPG, then if you're at the purest form of it, it's definitely creating a character that is yours, that you take through an adventure from the way you envision them, and the choices you make, and the items you need, and the skill trees, and all those different things is probably the definitive answer of what an RPG is. But I think more often the games we touch are probably more in the category of RPG light in a lot of cases.
Yep.
Which is nothing wrong with that. I really like RPG light. I like those elements because some of them can be RPG light, but still have very deep RPG mechanics and systems.
Sure. I'm happy God of War has skill trees in it. I'm glad they've commodified that and brought it over. God of War is not an RPG though.
No, right. It's like in the same vein of like Ori. Like Ori has like the skill tree and everything else, leveling systems and the whole nine. So,
I'll go one further. Even Guardians of the Galaxy, Guardians of the Galaxy is definitely more edgeline, but even then I would argue like it's not quite an RPG. You are although it does get close in some ways, but at least so far, no spoilers because neither of us have finished it, it doesn't seem like your choices really change things in the world, at least from what I can see. But again, maybe I finish that game and I change my mind and we can have an interesting discussion there, if that's the case.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
I would go as far to say too that I'm less of a snob about RPG light games than I am about RPG games. Because like when a developer comes out and says, this is a hardcore RPG, I'm like, all right, let's see it. Give it to me. And then it's something like Kingdom Come Deliverance where they're like, hey, we're going to just punch you in the face repeatedly with all the different RPG mechanics. So you're like, oh my God. But also RPG mechanics can add a depth to a game that feels rather shallow. One game I'll use an example, Watch Dogs Legion. really feel like that game, like I understand it follows the Ubisoft formula and everything else, but each character is unique and is a person and has their own reactions and their own skill trees and everything else. It was like, yeah, I like being the drunken, brutish guy that's fist fighting people down at the bar, or I can be the hacker girl that flies around on a drone, or like RPG Light is okay. Like, it's great. Just don't call Red Dead Redemption 2 a JRPG.
I don't know. I think we're onto something. I think we're onto something.
Yeah. I agree.
Now I'm just picturing Arthur Morgan with Cloud Strife hair, and it's blowing my mind right now. All right.
And a huge Buster sword on his back.
No, it's a Buster gun. It's just a big cattleman revolver that he pulls off his back.
That still fits in the Final Fantasy world. Hey, man, a couple of left turns. Red Dead Redemption could be a Final Fantasy game.
No, we're not. No.
Take out the horses, get your chocobos in there.
Look.
You know,
I didn't like Red Dead Redemption 2. I bounced off of it, but it's not like Final Fantasy bad.
Man, you're really going down rabbit holes tonight, man.
I like to live dangerously. What can I say?
See.
Endlessly and truly is with Final Fantasy. The main reason I've never played one is I just goddamn don't know where to start. And to be brutally honest, the community's the worst for it, because if you just ask an open poll question, hey, which Final Fantasy game should I start with? You're instantly going to have like 19 nerds fighting each other in the comments about which is the best one to start with. So I really don't know where to start at all. So if you want me to play a Final Fantasy game in 2022, that is next year. Yeah, 2022. Let me know which one I should play. Toss that in the comments of this podcast. You want to see me? I'll stream a Final Fantasy game. I don't even care. I just don't know where to start. Someone put me on the path.
This sounds fun.
I'm in for this, except for the one rule and exception. I, under no circumstance, will touch Final Fantasy 14.
But I'll tell you this: in most cases, unless you're going to go back and somehow retro it, well, I guess you could on PC. I don't know, but you're most likely going to start at 7.
So, yeah.
You got readily accessible.
You got those pixel remasters out now. I know the quality is debated, but those are a thing now. So you got those as an option.
Oh, those sweet Final Fantasy PC exclusives.
PC and mobile.
PC and mobile, because those games definitely wouldn't have made sense on Nintendo Switch.
Right. Or any of the consoles to be.
Yeah. No one wants to play any of the original Final Fantasies. No market there. But yeah, that's the show. I'm closing it down because our chaotic energy is getting too high now. I'm trashing Final Fantasy. Red Dead Redemption 2 is a JRPG. Like, if I lead this much further on, next thing you know, Animal Crossing is going to be Starfield or something. I don't know. So we'll get to outros here. Sam, where can people find you if they want to stalk you?
Yeah. Stalk me over on Twitter at Samuel Tolbert. That's TOLBERT. And stalk my writing over on Windows Central, Android Central, and iMore.
Absolutely. And Eric, where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter, EC Jackson with an X, and find me same places on all the consoles except for Switch, where you need 2 phone numbers for anyone to find you. And other than that, Brat Podcast, Wednesday nights at 9 o'clock.
Absolutely. I can't wait till Switch gets gamer tags in like 2024 or usernames, and people are going to herald it as the second coming. I'm excited.
That'll be on the Switch U.
The Switch U. No. If the next generation Switch isn't called the Switch Up, I'm disappointed. Period. End of story. Hey, have you bought the new Switch Up? The what? But I'm your host, Nicholas Downey. You can find me on Twitter, Nicholas_Downey. And you can find all my written work at lordsofgaming.net, where I'm just writing stuff. That's all it is. It's stuff. So find it over there, and appreciate you guys. And we have a guest next week, and it's going to be a good time. And we're going to roll right into the Game Awards here soon, too. So exciting times. Oh, yeah. And there's that Halo thing coming up in a couple of weeks. Yeah, we'll talk about that later. But exciting times. So see you guys next week, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Bye for now.